in just a second.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. And your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Monday, August 3rd. Your readers today are
Ted Pajacki.
And I'm Ed Howard. And we're going to start with the weather, and I think the phrase for the day is rain, rain, go away.
That's right.
Especially if you live in the northern half of the county or up in Niagara County in Lockport and up near Lake Ontario. However, the forecast for today is less humid with clouds giving way to sunshine. The high will be 78 degrees. We'll have a crystal clear sky tonight with a low of 58 and mostly sunny tomorrow with a high of 82. Wednesday, it'll be mostly cloudy with a couple of showers in the afternoon, a high of 83, and Thursday, humid again with a couple of showers. The high and low temperature yesterday was 80 and 69 degrees. Our normal high and low temperatures are 80 and 63. Our record high temperature is 96 degrees back in 1988, and the record low was 49 degrees back in 1947. We've had a lot of rain, and our normal rainfall for year-to-date should be a little over 22 inches. However, we are at over 28 inches, so we're a little more than 6 inches ahead of our normal rainfall for the year. And our air quality index for today is said to be good, kind of tending towards moderate. So that's the weather. Ted, what's in the news?
Well, let's look at that front page today. In Niagara County, what radiation readings reveal and what they don't. Elevated radiation readings in the backyards of several Niagara County homes have raised fears about the possible health effects of exposure. Radiation is scary to people, and the minute you hear radiation, you immediately think of atom bombs, said Jan Johnson, a longtime radiation safety expert. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and State Department of Environmental Conservation have investigated at least 121 homes in western Niagara County following aerial and vehicle-based surveys that began in October of 2023. About 85% of the homes that received ground surveys have been cleared, with no concerning radiation levels found. At least 6 properties had unnaturally elevated readings, prompting the agencies to collect soil samples. 4 families are being relocated. The Buffalo News obtained ground survey data from 4 homeowners, all in the same neighborhood south of Reservoir State Park. The data was presented on maps using dots and squares to show different radiation measurements. After reviewing the information, several health physics experts told the news that elevated readings do not necessarily mean residents receive doses known to cause cancer or other measurable health effects. The experts agreed, however, that the source and extent of radioactive material require further examination. Radiation is measured in several ways, and the numbers do not all answer the same question. The ground survey data includes measurements in microendogen per hour, or URHR. A Roentgen measures exposure radiation in the air. It does not show how much radioactive material someone inhaled or absorbed through their skin. Natural background radiation comes from sources including the sun, elevation and radioactive elements in soil and rock. Background readings in western New York generally range from about 10 to 20 URHRs units. In Colorado, where elevations are higher and some soil contains more naturally occurring uranium, background readings can range from 15 to 25 URHRs. The highest reading in the data provided to the news was 1,040 URHRs in a backyard, about 52 to 104 times the typical background level in Western New York. That reading shows that something unusual is present in that location. It does not, on its own, establish the dose received by anyone living there. Dose is generally expressed in REM or millirem. Annual exposure is often expressed in milligram per year or mrem/year. The U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission uses a cleanup standard of 25 MRMs per year, while the EPA uses 15 MREMs per year. The annual whole body occupational limit is 5,000 MREMs, while the limit for members of the public is 100 MREMs. Those regulatory limits are set well below levels known to cause measurable health effects, said Robert Hayes, an associate professor of nuclear engineering and radiation safety expert at North Carolina State University. The regulatory limits are generally an order of magnitude, if not 2 orders of magnitude, below what we know can create measurable effects, Hayes said. The average American receives a total annual dose of about 360 MREMs, mostly from natural sources, according to the U.S. Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. In Kerala, India, residents receive about 1,300 MREMs annually because of naturally concentrated radioactive material in the soil, according to the agency. Studies cited by the ATSDR found no increase in cancer, birth defects, or other health effects associated with the higher background dose. The conditions in Kerala are not identical to those in Niagara County, however. The comparison illustrates that a radiation measurement must be evaluated alongside the type of radioactive material, the exposure pathway, and the amount of time a person spends near it. If someone remained continuously at the Niagara County location where the 1,040 URHRs reading was recorded for 24 hours a day for an entire year, a rough conversion would produce an estimated dose of about 7,926 MREMs. That figure should not be treated as a measure of a resident's actual exposure. The calculation assumes constant exposure at a highest recorded location and relies on conversion between redigen and REMs that depend on energy and the type of radiation present. Even if you were to stay there in that spot, if you accumulate that over the years, it's still not expected to see any measurable health effects, said Kay Vetter, who reviewed the property that was obtained by the news.
Well, staying on the front page of today's Buffalo News, our next headline is, Cost to fix jails in Erie County keeps spiraling. How much to fix Erie County jails? Possibly $60 million over 6 years, and then some. The dollar signs for upkeep of Erie County's 2 existing jails are piling up. The county is preparing to allocate $5.5 million this year for a series of fixes and upgrades to the Downtown Holding Center and Erie County Correctional Facility in Alden. The legislature is expected to act on the request after it gets back from its August break. The Sheriff's Office has also raised the need to spend another $6 million for additional cameras and camera system upgrades for both jails. Meanwhile, next year's capital construction budget is looking at another $10 million for additional upgrades and repairs to the 2 jail facilities. When will the need for major investments in jails end? Not for a long time, if ever. they're falling apart, Sheriff John Garcia told the Buffalo News. He told county legislators in July that the jails may require $20 million a year in upgrades each year for the next 6 years, assuming each jail facility receives a $10 million investment for a total of $120 million. That figure raised follow-up questions by legislators during mid-year budget hearings. But Budget Director Mark Cornell and Sheriff's Office spokesman Chris Horvitz later clarified that the initial $120 million amount incorrectly assumed $10 million for each jail facility, when the county's Department of Public Works is actually referring to $10 million shared between both jails. In some of our more preliminary conversations earlier in the process, we were discussing $20 million internally, Horvitz said. But even a plan to spend only $10 million a year in taxpayer money each year for the next 6 years still means the county would have to find $60 million in county revenue, savings, or borrowing. This comes with zero-cost savings, meaning everything is to remain the same, Garcia said. We're just fixing up our own place. Both Garcia and County Executive Mark Poloncarz waged a failed campaign last year to gain county legislature support for a plan that would create a new, expanded, and consolidated county jail facility at the county's correctional facility location in Alden. Poloncarz said the bipartisan lack of interest still aggravates him. Legislators on both sides killed the new jail campaign last year when they refused to consider it funding it, following up on both organized and informal opposition to raising taxes to better house people accused and convicted of crimes. You're either going to pay millions of dollars annually to repair it, or you could have put that millions of dollars into debt service and gotten built a new jail, he said. It drives me nuts from a standpoint of seeing other communities in the United States who are smaller than Erie County, but building modern jails with costs just as expensive as the one we proposed, and their legislators understand the need, but ours don't. Given the minimum price tag of $430 million and likely more, and the need to raise property taxes to cover the borrowing costs, legislators blocked the new jail effort in December, amending the budget to remove the new jail project from the county's 2026 capital budget, which outlines every major county construction project. Though few disputed the argument that a redesigned and modernized jail could save millions in future maintenance and personnel costs, those projected savings gained no traction against the political fallout and public opposition to spending nearly twice as much money on jails than the county allocated to build the new Bills Stadium. Poloncarz and Garcia said future plans to spend millions of dollars a year to keep existing jails going, including the oldest parts of the holding center that date back to the 1930s, is essentially throwing good money after bad. Our taxpayers are on the hook for, where's it going to end, Garcia said, referring to the ongoing high-cost maintenance needs contrasted against long-term personnel and maintenance savings with a new jail. We've got to remember the $15 million in savings that the study projected years from now. Engineering and design consultants who looked at new jail options initially estimated the cost of keeping the jails functioning for the next few decades at $250 million. So far this year, Garcia and his staff have shared stories about thousands of gallons of food waste leaking into jail crawl spaces in February, a small electrical fire that had firefighters in April, and 100 to 200 jail cells or more that are out of commission due to mechanical failures and broken locking mechanisms. Poloncarz, like Garcia, said it doesn't make sense to spend so much money now when it's obvious to him that existing jails have no long-term future and eventually will need to be replaced by a new facility. This is going to have to be built someday, and the longer it goes without being built, the more expensive it's going to be in the long run, Poloncarz said. You can't just stick your head in the sand and hope it goes away. It's not going away, and it's only going to cost the county taxpayers more if it's done 10 years from now, because the costs are going to increase that much more.
You are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service, and the time is 15 minutes after the hour. And we turn now to the opinion section of the news, and we start with the Buffalo News staff editorial. And today's editorial is about a program to help veterans that missed its target disgracefully, and it's titled Systemic Failure. Veterans should never have to fight bureaucracy for benefits they already earned through their military service. Yet, that's exactly what happened with New York's Access to Home for Heroes Veterans Program, where government failures, not a lack of need, kept disabled veterans from receiving assistance that could have allowed them to remain safely in their homes. The failure was documented in a recent report by News Albany Bureau Chief Robert Gavin, based on an audit by State Controller Thomas DiNapoli. The audit found that Erie County municipalities and nonprofit organizations did not take advantage of the state program, Access to Home for Heroes Veteran Program, which started in 2015. The audit, along with an interactive map based on October 2025 data, showed that across western New York, only Chautauqua County entities applied for the aid that was available through the program. The program is intended to help disabled veterans of low and moderate income levels remain in their homes. At a maximum of $25,000, the money can be used for modifications that create safer bathrooms, widen doorways for wheelchairs, and wheelchair ramps. Yet, the program never reached many of the people it was designed to help. The Comptroller probe found New York State Homes and Community Renewal, HCR, did not effectively monitor the program, according to an audit that was conducted between April of 2022 and last December. HCR is the state's affordable housing agency that operates the program through the Housing Trust Fund Corporation Office of Community Renewal. The audit found HCR and recipients struggled to make the public aware of the program. Auditors found 35 counties in New York with large populations of disabled veterans. 19 of the counties had no applicants. The state is home to 173,000 disabled veterans, including 12,354 in Erie County. Only Long Island Suffolk County has more disabled veterans in the state, but neither the county nor any not-for-profits in Erie County applied for the aid. How is this possible? Why didn't Erie County know? Why didn't nonprofits know? Why didn't HCR recognize that a county with the state's second largest population of disabled veterans wasn't participating? These are all questions that elected officials must answer. Meanwhile, explanations fall short. The audit points to failures at every level, from state officials promoting and monitoring the program to local governments not seeking available funding. Community organizations that work with veterans missed an opportunity to bring assistance home. NCR insists it conducts robust outreach through emails, webinars, and manuals. Yet, an audit found officials in some communities with large veteran populations had never even heard of the program. If outreach leaves its intended audience unaware that the program exists, it's difficult to call it robust. The delivery and follow-up to the Access to Homes for Heroes Veterans Program must be addressed. New York State Homes and Community Renewal must immediately comply with audit recommendations. State officials must identify every county that has gone without participation, aggressively recruit municipal and nonprofit partners, and ensure every eligible veteran knows that help is available. Veterans cannot be allowed to suffer because they do not know about the benefits available to them that they have already earned through their service.
Well, next we have today's Another Voice column, and the topic is health, and the writer is Elena Besnikin, who is an occupational therapy assistant student and a yoga instructor living in Williamsville. She writes, I admire the human brain and its amazing ability to adapt, and I believe our everyday habits can help protect it. Dementia is not just a normal aging or simple forgetfulness. It is a group of conditions that gradually affect memory, thinking, behavior, and daily life. Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia, but there are others. Dementia becomes a concern when changes start to interfere with everyday tasks, managing money, remembering appointments, following a recipe, or finding the right words. When that happens, it's important to see a doctor and rule out other causes. As our population ages, dementia will affect more families, but there is also hopeful news. Many risk factors that are related to lifestyle and overall health, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, smoking, heavy drinking, untreated diabetes, inactivity, and long-term loneliness all increase risk. Healthier routines can't guarantee we will never develop dementia, but they can lower the chances or delay its onset. Movement is one of the most powerful tools we have. Regular physical activity helps control blood pressure, blood sugar, and weight, improves sleep and mood, and increases blood flow to the brain. Even simple activities, brisk walking, gentle yoga, light strength exercises, or even dancing in the kitchen can help if we do them consistently and safely. The brain also needs good fuel. When blood sugar is high for years and the body becomes resistant to insulin, it makes it harder for brain cells to use energy. Eating more whole foods, vegetables, and healthy fats, cutting back on highly processed foods and sugary drinks, and following medical advice for diabetes or high blood pressure all support brain health. Finally, our minds thrive on connection and challenge. Talking with friends, learning new skills, reading, playing games, enjoying music or art, and good sleep patterns all help keep our brains active. Staying up to date with vaccines protects us from serious infections that can harm the brain. We can't control everything in life, but small, steady changes in movement, nutrition, sleep, and connection are a kind of love letter to our future selves and to the people who love us. Now, Ted, I try to be as healthy as I can, but I think I draw the line at dancing in the kitchen.
Don't knock it until you try it. Today's editorial cartoon comes to us from Mike Lukovich of Creators Syndicate, and it's a simple one with 2 panels. In the first panel on the left, there's an image of FBI Director Kash Patel with his eyes wide open, and he's saying in there, it's time for the FBI to focus on corruption. And in the other panel, there's a picture of Donald Trump and his entire family, and they're all holding huge money bags. And Kash Patel is telling to them just one word, kidding, just kidding.
Well, next we're going to turn the page to the political opinion columns, and our first one comes from Carl P. Lubsdorf, who writes for the Dallas Morning News, and his headline is, GOP's electoral prospects appear bleak in the golden age. In President Trump's world, everything is great. A new golden age is upon us. Gas prices are down, at least in June. The Iranians are eager to end that skirmish, and if only John Thune would follow orders, a century of GOP success would ensue. But it's just possible that when Republican House members start their month-long recess next week, they'll confront a far different landscape than that rosy Trumpian scenario. Gas prices are up again, as well as insurance costs. Government health support is down. A new round of costly tariffs. And instead of a president who promised to cut prices, settle the Russia-Ukraine war in a day, and avoid new foreign entanglements, we've got one who did just the opposite. Prices are still high. The bloody Ukraine war no closer to settlement. The United States increasingly entangled in a seemingly endless war with Iran. That reality, far from any golden age, explains why Trump's job approval remains at low ebb and why those GOP lawmakers face an uphill fight to preserve a slender House majority that only their mid-decade gerrymandering provides any hope of maintaining. They're counting on the Democrats being hardly more appealing than the Republicans, enmeshed in acrimonious internal fights from Maine to Arizona. They hope the Democratic primaries will produce general election candidates in key states who are further left than is normally palatable, underscoring what Trump derides as a return to the communism that Ronald Reagan consigned to the ash heap of history. The communists even want to bomb Mount Rushmore, Trump said recently. For a spell this summer, when the top national political story was the messy controversy over flawed Senate candidate the Democrats had voted for themselves in Maine, it looked as if those factors might bolster the GOP's hopes of avoiding midterm disaster that the recently elected presidents have faced. But as Trump waffles over whether to fight or settle with Iran, and Iranian attacks in the once free-flowing Strait of Hormuz force a rebound in gas prices, the Democrats hope to head off their most politically questionable left-wing candidates. They seamlessly diffuse their ticking Maine time bomb, and polls show their initially optimistic prospects have barely dimmed. "I don't care about the midterms," Trump said during a May cabinet meeting. He seems more interested in devoting a large share of his declining energies to the self-aggrandizing projects he believes will cement his long-term legacy, like the White House's massive $600 billion Donald Trump ballroom, the overtowering Donald Trump arch at the city's Arlington Gateway, and such lesser vainglories as trying to rename New York City's venerable Penn Station and other such landmarks after himself. All that misalignment of presidential priorities was on display when Trump made his long-awaited appearance before the recently rescheduled White House Correspondents Association dinner, from the misleading depiction of the Golden Age to the purported Iran military success, dampened by his usual ad hominem attacks on politicians and the press whose efficacy has worn thin after more than a decade. Trump declared that he is the only public figure in whom the public is interested, proclaiming with only a touch of self-mockery that he looks forward to running in 2028 for a fourth term, on the false premise that he won the one election that he lost. The only sign that he might be resigned to his eventual displacement was the fact that he seemed to have more trouble than usual maintaining his focus on a night that, even by Trump standards, went on too long, just like his presidency.
Our next opinion piece comes to us from Carol Evans, and the headline is, "Dynamic pricing is an abusive practice that should be banned." Should the price of your groceries depend on what a retailer knows about your shopping habits or your neighborhood? How would you feel if the person behind you was charged less for the same tank of gas? That's the reality dynamic pricing threatens to create. Dynamic pricing, often called surveillance or algorithmic pricing, allows companies to use information about us, including our location, demographics, credit history, browsing activity, and shopping habits, against us to decide what products we see and what prices that we're offered. Prices can change multiple times throughout the day. While some businesses pledge not to use consumer-specific data, we still need clear protection from this harmful practice. Dynamic pricing should be banned because it lets corporations quietly decide prices based on how much they believe they can extract from each person. It not only hurts consumers, it threatens our civil rights and undermines the principles of fairness and equal treatment that our democracy depends upon. Few of us object to a hotel room at the beach costing more in July than in January. However, dynamic pricing depends on who's buying. Its goal is to estimate the maximum amount a person may be willing or forced to pay. A family buying groceries could pay more because an algorithm decides they're unlikely to shop elsewhere. Someone urgently seeking a necessary product or service could be charged more because a company believes they have fewer options. Most consumers never even know it's happening. When you shop online, you can't see the prices offered to someone on another device or in another neighborhood. Comparison shopping means far less when websites can show different prices and products to different people. Price differences between the neighborhoods were once visible. Today, companies can make those distinctions instantly and privately, one person at a time. Data collection and predictive algorithms have made individualized pricing easier to implement and much harder to see. Consumer protection has never been only about protecting our wallets. Instead, it's about creating fair rules of the game so that we can all build our lives, families, and communities without a constant fear of being taken advantage of. Dynamic pricing raises questions about who holds information and power and whether people can recognize and challenge unfair treatment. It can deepen income and wealth disparities and produce discriminatory price differences connected to things such as your race or your gender. A democracy that works for all of us cannot allow powerful corporations to sort people into categories secretly, determine what each person can be made to pay, and deny consumers the information they need to challenge unequal treatment. Fair participation in our economy and democracy requires transparency, accountability, and equal protection from discrimination. We should be able to rely on our government to guard against the predatory misuse of our personal data. Some of these practices may already violate the law, but the lack of transparency means that the unfair treatment is hidden. And to make matters worse, the federal agencies with the expertise and authority to act, like the Federal Trade Commission and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, have been kneecapped by the Trump administration. Stronger protections for consumers are needed. States are now trying to fill that void. New York has required disclosures when personal data is used to set prices. Other states have pursued stronger restrictions and bans on surveillance pricing. Congress has a duty to protect people from corporate abuse. Instead, it's considering laws that put corporate power above the rights of states to protect their residents from exploitative pricing practices. Businesses should be free to compete. They shouldn't be free to discriminate or decide that two people have to pay different prices for the same product just because of an algorithm. When corporations rig the system to feed their bottom line, privacy, fairness, and accountability disappear. Dynamic pricing doesn't just hurt consumers' wallets, it gives powerful companies another hidden tool to deepen inequality and weaken the promise that our economy and democracy should work for everyone.
Well, next we'll turn to news from Washington, and the headline is RFK Jr. targets Fauci and pushes medical misinformation once more. In attempting to rewrite the history of the U.S. COVID-19 response, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on Sunday pinned the blame for pandemic lockdowns on Dr. Anthony Fauci while simultaneously reviving a string of debunked assertions about vaccines, RSV, and measles. Kennedy's appearance on CNN came in the wake of congressional hearings with Fauci last week when the infectious disease expert invoked his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination more than 100 times. Kennedy joined the chorus of criticism on CNN's State of the Union with Dana Bash, saying President Trump, who was in office at the beginning of the pandemic and notably downplayed the virus, was not to blame for the government's response. Trump, as you recall, wanted to end the lockdowns, he said. The lockdowns were overseen by state and local leaders who were responding to ICUs being overwhelmed and hospitals asking for help to get control of the situation in the early stages of the pandemic. Dr. Ashish Jha, who served as White House COVID-19 response coordinator under President Joe Biden from 2022 to 2023, pushed back. The accountability has to be with our political leaders and not with scientists who are giving advice. Second issue that I just want to quickly reflect on, there was a lot of information that Secretary Kennedy said that just isn't true. It's factually not true, Jha told Bash following Kennedy's appearance. The clash underscores a deepening division over public health authority at a critical junction. As HHS Secretary, Kennedy's skepticism of mainstream science is no longer just an outsider rhetoric, it now shapes official federal policy. Kennedy pushed back on his handling of the measles outbreaks in the U.S. He said the communities that are suffering from measles are almost all religious communities that just don't vaccinate. Kennedy told Bash that dozens of studies that link exposure to Tylenol during late pregnancy and perinatal period to autism, a 2025 review of U.S. researchers of 46 earlier studies, did suggest a possible link between prenatal exposure to acetaminophen, the drug found in Tylenol, and neurodevelopment disorders such as autism and attention deficit, but researchers said the study does not prove the drugs cause those conditions. And Kennedy and Bash butted heads on whether COVID-19 vaccinations had protected children, with the secretary asking her to cite research showing that the vaccine, quote, did more good than harm.
And in financial news, state attorney generals expand consumer work as federal protections are gutted. Since President Trump has gutted much of the federal government's consumer protection work, state attorney generals are increasingly left to fight high prices and investigate businesses themselves. That change follows Trump's dismantling of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, an agency that was created by Congress in the wake of the Great Recession. And persisting concerns about the high prices of housing, groceries, and fuel has made affordability a top political concern for many attorney generals. After Trump took office last year, the Bureau became an early target of Elon Musk's short-lived Department of Government Efficiency. Since then, it has dropped dozens of investigations and enforcement cases, moved to slash the agency workforce, and made it harder for consumers to submit complaints. The Trump administration has also sought to limit the authority granted to states to enforce financial services protection under the federal legislation that launched the CFPB. Now, Democratic and Republican attorneys general are increasingly teaming up to use state laws and enforce federal laws to go after alleged antitrust violations, deceptive marketing practices, and price gouging. Connecticut Attorney General William Tong, the president of the Bipartisan National Association of Attorneys Generals, said states are increasingly working to fill the void left by the federal government. If it looks unfair, if it seems unfair, it probably is unfair, he said. Experts note that the state attorney generals cannot fully replace the breadth of work once undertaken by the federal government, and the growing interest in large multi-state cases can divert Attorney General Office resources from pressing other local consumer matters, they add. Still, big businesses have taken note. Once considered secondary enforcers of consumer protections, states are increasingly defining the rules around pricing transparency, subscription service fees, and algorithmic pricing. That decentralization means businesses can face quickly evolving, different, or even contradictory rules in different states.
Well, in Middle East news now, President Trump said he's holding off delivering new strikes on Iran after Tehran and other Middle Eastern powers told him they're working on an agreement that might quickly reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Trump said he'd agreed to cancel the attack, quote, subject to being able to rapidly make a deal, according to a post on Truth Social. He said, get to work, everybody, and get it done. The announcement marks a moment of potential respite after days of escalating tensions that saw Trump preparing to hit the Islamic Republic, quote, very hard, unquote, in a bid to bring an end to a conflict that's now in its 6th month. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Sunday on Telegram that negotiations between Iran and Oman are in the final stages. The two countries that flank the strait are discussing a new route through it, but the talks don't cover whether the strait will be closed or open, Araghchi spokesman Esmail Bahari said in an interview on Iranian state-run TV. Bahari blamed the U.S. for the waterway being closed to shipping traffic. Waves of tit-for-tat Iranian attacks on American allies have targeted countries across the Middle East, while Tehran's effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz, a global shipping choke point, has driven sharp swings in energy prices. The U.S. was asked to hold off any attack in that perimeters of a deal have been agreed to, Trump said in his post on Saturday. This would include the immediate, complete, and total opening of the Strait of Hormuz and an end to Iran's nuclear threat. Iran's semi-official Fars news agency, which is affiliated with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, said Trump's claim of halting attacks was, quote, a repeated retreat from threats. Axios reported earlier that Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman had urged Trump to refrain from new strikes. The official Saudi news agency said Sunday the kingdom's de facto ruler had stressed to Trump the need for dialogue to de-escalate tensions. Israel, which launched the war alongside the U.S. but wasn't party to an initial Washington-Iran peace deal in June, is waiting out the latest diplomatic push, according to a member of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's security cabinet, Zev Elkin. There's some kind of a vector toward an agreement between Iran and Oman, he told local Army radio on Sunday. The two nations held discussions last month that sought to reopen the Hormuz Strait. Elkin expressed skepticism. We'll all wait to see if this vector really does become a full agreement and whether it will be implemented and where it's all leading. Trump met with Netanyahu at the White House this past week, their first meeting since the Iran war began on February 28th. The Israeli premier said they discussed options for pursuing the campaign. The prospect of yet more attacks had ratcheted up worries in the region, where Iranian strikes have threatened the energy facilities in countries including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Kuwait. Brent crude ended last week above $90 a barrel, compared with below $72 a barrel at the start of July. Major OPEC Plus nations on Sunday agreed in principle to another token increase in their production quotas for September. The move would complete the theoretical revival of supplies halted in 2023 and give scope to add more barrels once the Middle East war ends.
Also in world news, China is drawing red lines ahead of talks on trade. China is energetically defending its economic policy mix that favors advanced industries over consumption, adopting a posture analysts see as demonstrating increasing confidence ahead of looming trade talks with Europe and the United States. President Xi Jinping and President Trump plan more face-to-face meetings this year, while Brussels has set an October deadline for Beijing to settle disputes as worries grow over China's trillion-dollar-plus trade surplus. Western countries frame China's policies as mercantilist and opposing global trade rules, saying its priority for producers over households pushes cheaper goods into global markets, hollowing out industry in nations seeking a more balanced growth. But a meeting of top Communist Party leaders signaled policy continuity on Thursday, calling for targeted support rather than the consumer-focused stimulus and structural changes long urged by China's trading partners and many economists. Days earlier, the Communist Ministry accused the West of protectionism in a position paper on, quote, so-called industrial overcapacity, end quote, that rejected the notion as rooted in logical flaws and ulterior motives. The ruling Communist Party's flagship theoretical journal, Qishi, also defended China's low consumption in July as a historically justified outcome of the investment-led catch-up development model. Such messages stop short of telling the West that China will not change course, said Zhu Tichanen, a senior economist at the Economist Intelligence Unit, but send two posturing signals. The first is about hoping others understand where it comes from. A better mutual understanding helps in negotiations, Zhu said. The second is about drawing a red line. The Commerce Ministry paper made clear that China does not accept discriminatory measures against its firms and products, he added. China says its model reflects the needs of a country still converging with advanced economies. Its products are not only cheaper, but increasingly better, while its tech and science investments can benefit the entire world. This is a narrative that is falling flat in countries at the receiving end of those exports, a professor of trade philosophy at Cornell University said the other day. China's heavy dependence on exports to power its own growth in light of weak domestic demand is going to make it difficult to argue that Chinese exports are a gift to consumers worldwide. Washington's effort to boost pressure on China through tariffs of more than 100% last year floundered, as Beijing used its dominant position in production of rare earths, key for a wide range of global industries, to regain strategic ground. Now, the European Union, whose trade deficit with China averaged $1 billion a day last year, is pursuing its own industrial and domestic procurement policies in order to defend its market.
As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. And our first death listing is Dorothy Kavanaugh, who passed away on July 27th of this year in Coral Springs, Florida. During her career, she worked for the LL Burger Company and managed both the Thruway Plaza and Seneca Mall stores. And our second death listing is Dorothy Agnes Schwab. She passed away on January 22nd of this year at the age of 94 in her daughter's house in Bend, Oregon. There will be a massive Christian burial held at St. Amelia's Church on Eggert Road in Tonawanda this coming Saturday at the August 8th at 9:30 a.m. with interment to follow at Mount Calvary Cemetery. If you need further information on either of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555.
And now we take some time to look at our horoscope and the royal stars for today. And today, I got to tell you, Ed, it's a good day to do anything. Almost, they're all 4 and 5 stars.
It's looking pretty good.
So yeah, go out and play. Today's the hole-in-one day.
After the rain stops.
After the rain stops. So if today is your birthday, and we want to just wish a very happy birthday to former Bills coach Marv Levy, who turns 101 today. And if today is your birthday, you are focused, courageous, and energetic. You're also adventurous, impulsive, and self-disciplined. This is a fun-loving year. Your zest for life is at a pinnacle.
Well, that sounds like Marv.
It does. Where would you rather be, right? The stars show what kind of day you'll have. 5 dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, and they're all 5s and 4s, so we won't go beyond that. Aries, 5 stars. This is a lovely day for you. You feel warm and friendly to everyone and concerned for their welfare. Tonight, you're powerful. Taurus, 4 stars. This is a feel-good day. You'll enjoy time spent alone in private moments or solitude because you're sensitive to the problems of others today. Tonight, solitude. Gemini, 5 stars. You're interested in the world today. You want to know what's going on. You want to talk to others. Tonight, be friendly. Cancer, 4 stars. People notice you today. You can use this to your advantage if you want to set an example, especially an example that is caring, compassionate, and generous to others. Tonight, be modest. Leo, 5 stars. Your desire to expand your world is strong today. Not only are you interested in travel, you're also interested in big ideas and making progress through medicine or the law in a way that benefits others. Tonight, explore. Virgo, 4 stars. You're happy to work alone or behind the scenes today. Nevertheless, you might do fundraising or use the wealth and resources of someone else to benefit others. Tonight, check your finances. Libra, 4 stars. This is a popular day, and you're eager to schmooze, especially with members of the general public. You might have a strong connection with a partner, spouse, or a close friend. Tonight, be cooperative. Scorpio, 5 stars. You make a fabulous impression on others today, which is something you can use if you want to persuade someone about something that is dear to your heart. Tonight, get organized. Sagittarius, 4 stars. Do something different today. You're keen for adventure. Romantic interests as well as playful times with kids will delight you. Tonight, relax and socialize. Capricorn, 4 stars. You're certainly sensitive to the needs of family members right now. You might research ways to get funding or help for someone who needs assistance. Tonight, home and family. Aquarius, 4 stars. You're an idealist who is concerned about the welfare of society. Today, you might be on your proverbial podium or out there with petitions because you care about a cause. Tonight, a lively discussion. And finally, Pisces, 5 stars. If you can do something to help others, especially related to your job, then you will. You feel sensitive to the concerns and problems of someone. Tonight, check your belongings.
Well, now it's time to turn back the clock and look at today in history. And on Monday, August 3rd, 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, launching from the port of Palos in Spain with the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. He hoped to find a western sea route to the spice-rich countries of Asia. In 1921, 8 Chicago White Sox players were banned for life from Major League Baseball after being accused of taking bribes to lose the 1919 World Series. They'd been acquitted at trial the day before, but Baseball Commissioner Kennesaw Mountain Landis said that even just meeting with gamblers irrevocably tainted the players. Say it ain't so, Joe. In 1923, Vice President Calvin Coolidge became president after the sudden death of President Warren Harding. He swore the oath of office on the family Bible to his father, a notary public. A Vermonter, Coolidge was known for his Yankee frugality and taciturnity. In 1936, American Jesse Owens won the 100-meter dash for the first of his 4 gold medals at the Berlin Olympics. The black athlete's success served as a rebuke of Hitler's racist policies. In 1960, the Republic of Niger gained independence from France. U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower sent his congratulations to Prime Minister Harmony Diori. And in 1996, Hey Macarena, a catchy rumba remix of Los Angeles Del Rio's Macarena first topped the Billboard Hot 100 for it stayed for 14 weeks.
That was a memorable one.
That was, yes.
Now we take a look at some news briefs from the world. The death toll is at least 72 in the Morocco migrant rush. The death toll from the mass rush of immigrants from Morocco into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta last week reached at least 72 on Sunday, as 5 more bodies were found along the North African coast, officials said. The number of fatalities was considerably higher than what was announced on Sunday by the Moroccan authorities. More than 5,000 people crossed into Ceuta by land and sea in an unprecedented surge that began on Thursday at one of the European Union's only 2 land borders with Africa, prompting alarm across the bloc. More than 48,000 returned to Morocco within 48 hours, and more did so over the weekend, authorities said. In Moscow, a homemade bomb carried by a woman killed at least 3 people and injured 21 near an upscale restaurant in central Moscow on Saturday evening, authorities said, amid controversial what happened to this thing? Okay. On social media, the attack may have been linked to the war in Ukraine. And finally, in Pakistan, at least 14 people were killed in a suspected suicide bombing outside a police station on Sunday in northwestern Pakistan. The explosion took place in the Kabul area of Swat, the district in Pakistan's Khyber province.
You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Monday, August 3rd on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
Ted Pajacki.
And I'm Ed Howard.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News, and your readers are
Ed Howard.
and Ted Pajacki. And we turn now to some local and regional news. And our first article says, Animal Shelter, Community Center, Gun Range, Property near the Central Terminal stirs debate. Plans to turn a former community center from the Central Terminal into a Buffalo Police Department training facility and gun range have been controversial from the start. Now, it looks like the city might be open to some other options. Deputy Mayor Benjamin Swanekamp told the Buffalo News in an interview last week that the city did look at the property as a potential site for a new city animal shelter, as Mayor Sean Ryan made a campaign promise to find a new site for the beleaguered Oak Street shelter. But he also stressed that 379 Podereski Drive is one of a handful of buildings being considered for that purpose, not to mention the possibility of building new on the vacant land. The site continues to be used as an active shooter training facility with office and classroom space by the department. Police Commissioner Erica Shields is reviewing the gun range plan and would still decide to move the project. Recently, as part of a larger effort to assess city-owned property for potential uses and to find a new home for the city's animal shelter, the city looked through the building as a potential location. The Central Terminal Neighborhood Association, a community group, previously endorsed the plan to put the police training center and gun range at this site. But last week, the group came out in support of locating the animal shelter in the building instead. As Broadway Fillmore undergoes historic reinvestment, we believe this prominent site can become a welcoming civic destination that serves the entire city while strengthening the neighborhood around it. Let's transform one of our neighborhood's most prominent public buildings into a place that gives hundreds of animals and the community that will welcome them a second chance, the group's Facebook post reads. An advocacy group and several neighbors mounted a legal challenge to use as a police training facility, specifically concerned about the planned police gun range. Last week, members of the advocacy group Liberation for One, Liberation for All, also known as LOLA, made social media posts describing a rumor that the building was being considered as the site of the new animal shelter. In a subsequent news release, they again urged the city to use the building again as a community center. In a telephone interview on Sunday, Elia Williams, a group member, said the group continues to view a community center as the best for that space and ultimately much more affordable than either an animal shelter or a gun range, which would each require substantial capital investment. Taxpayers may actually save money if it was restored versus other uses, Williams said. In the lawsuit, the group claimed the city failed to comply with requirements regarding zoning and environmental reviews, was in violation of state law regarding parkland, and did not consider the objections of nearby residents. The lawsuit was dismissed in April, though the judge ruled the group did have standing to sue. The group, in a release, said it still plans to appeal that ruling.
Well, staying on the front page of today's city and regional section, our headline is Suspect Charged in Friday Homicide in South Buffalo. Woman's death closed out a violent July in the city. Buffalo police have made an arrest in the city's most recent homicide. Ramon Jones, age 36, was charged with second-degree murder and criminal possession of a weapon in the shooting death of 32-year-old Sashista Dade on McAmley Street in South Buffalo. Police were responding to a domestic violence call that was updated to a shots fired call at 7:45 p.m. Friday when they found Dade suffering from gunshot wounds. She was transported to Erie County Medical Center by ambulance but later died, according to a news release from the department. Police said that Jones was arrested Sunday after fleeing a Kiefer Street home where police executed a search warrant. A gun was recovered during the execution of the warrant. The killing marks the end of a violent July in the city during which 22 people were shot and 3 were killed, though one of the homicides was a stabbing in the Riverside neighborhood. Half of all the shootings took place in a 2-hour period on the 4th of July weekend in and around the site of an East Delavan street party, during which 11 people were shot, but no one was killed. Police continue to search for Davon Alexander, the man officials say is responsible for organizing the party online. Buffalo Police Commissioner Erica Shields has held several community meetings where she has heard from residents on a number of issues, including the uptick in gun violence. After the violent holiday weekend, Maston District Council member Zanetta Everhart, who has made gun violence prevention a focus of her work since joining the council in 2024, held an outreach session aimed at coming up with community-based solutions and is currently evaluating the data from that meeting with the help of academics.
Also in local news, after nearly a century in business, Lancaster menswear retailer is closing its doors. The New York store opened in the heart of the village of Lancaster in 1929, just before the stock market crash that signaled the United States' fall into the Great Depression. It was, perhaps, not the ideal time to start a new retail business, but the men's clothing store that was born into adversity has survived and thrived for 97 years as its clientele and village grew and evolved around it. We've been here through wars, COVID, all kinds of things. Changes in the country, changes in the world, changes in the industry, and we've made it. We've changed with the times, owner Alan Kurtzman said. But after nearly a century of styling the men of Western New York, the business is closing its doors. Kurtzman said, it's time to retire. It's very hard. It's very bittersweet, I would say. But it's just something I kind of had to do for myself because I don't want to work 6 days a week anymore, Kurtzman said. Along with global pandemics and economic crashes, the New York store has survived a century of equally unforgiving changes in fashion. Kurtzman said he and his staff must constantly adapt to new styles for their customers. For instance, the length of men's pants has recently trended shorter. 10 years ago, if we would have marked a pair of pants shorter like that, people would have killed us, and because it was considered floods. But now, everybody wants them in a little different place, he said. Kurtzman also noted that changes in men's fashion over the years. Pants are tighter, colors are brighter, fabrics have gone from heavyweight wools to high-tech and stretchy. Kurtzman's day-to-day working philosophy was to be straightforward and honest, even if it meant finding a diplomatic way to share a negative opinion. Always tell the truth. If something doesn't look good on somebody, tell them, Kurtzman said. I've told people, I really don't want to sell that to you because I don't want you to say that you got that here. I want you to be happy with your purchase. When it comes to parting fashion advice, Kurtzman encouraged people to dress out of their comfort zone. Try something a little different because people will notice, he said. Kurtzman's grandfather, Henry Kahn, founded the New York store, and the shop has stayed in the family since. Kurtzman's father joined the business in 1953, and Kurtzman himself officially began working there in 1980. Kurtzman and his sister, Elaine Werner, have both worked at the New York store since they were children, tasked with roles such as strengthening displays of socks or sending collected cash down a tube that connected the store upstairs with the downstairs. Werner, though not co-owner of the business, has also worked there consistently since 1980. There are just so many memories over the years, Werner said. It was fun as a kid. Kurtzman and Werner aren't the only family who have deep ties to the store. Some families have been customers for generations. You know, I've waited on their parents, their grandparents, and their grandparents remember me when I was a little kid. Now that the store is closing, both Kurtzman and Werner say they were surprised by the heartfelt response from so many of their customers.
Well, this is interesting. The Green Book gets a new life thanks to a local historian. Imagine stepping into the Little Harlem Hotel, one of Buffalo's hippest nightclubs in the 1940s, to see performances of famous musicians of the time such as Cab Calloway and Billy Eckstine. Or listen in as W.E.B. Du Bois and others plan the Niagara Movement, forerunner to the NAACP, in the Buffalo home of civil rights leader Mary B. Talbert. The subjects are part of a new pilot project using augmented reality to create historical scenes to allow people to get up close and personal with local historical figures and sites. People will be able to stand at landmark locations in the city, scan a QR code with their mobile devices, and experience archival photographs, historical narratives, and audio storytelling that reveal the stories behind the sites. It's like you're actually standing there, living it and experiencing it, said Jalen Law, a Buffalo native, artist, and researcher. He recently received a 2026 statewide community re-grant from the New York State Council on the Arts, administered by Art Services Incorporated. Law is teaming up with the Michigan Street African Heritage Corridor to develop the pilot project called Buffalo Green Book AR Pilot, a mobile heritage experience. The project will explore sites in Buffalo that were once featured in, quote, the Negro Motorist Green Book, unquote, a guidebook for African Americans traveling through the United States during the Jim Crow era of legalized racial segregation. The Buffalo pilot, set to launch next June, will initially focus on 3 historic locations in Buffalo to create immersive experiences: the Little Harlem Hotel, the Mary B. Talbert House, and the Colored Musicians Club. Little Harlem Hotel, which was listed in the Green Book, is the project anchor. The Talbert House was not listed, nor was the Colored Musicians Club, but the organization operated continuously throughout the Green Book era. The Talbert House and the Musicians Club are included in the pilot, quote, to tell a complete civic and cultural story of Black Buffalo, Law said. The community is invited to contribute photographs, memories, documents, and other historic materials for the project. Terry Alford, executive director of the Heritage Corridor Commission, said the organization is extremely pleased to partner with Law. This is a unique opportunity to create fresh and exciting ways for our friends, neighbors, and visitors to experience the Heritage Corridor. It's also an amazing way to spread awareness of the people, stories, and legacies that help build Buffalo, Alford said. Victor Hugo Green, a Harlem-based postal carrier, published the Negro Motorist Green Book annually from 1936 until 1966 during the Jim Crow era in the United States, in which whites-only signs and sundown towns, places that ban black people after dark and often enforced the bans with intimidation and violence, were scattered across the country. Jim Crow laws lasted from the 1870s to the mid-1960s, when the Civil Rights Act of 1964 banned discrimination in public places and employment, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 outlawed discriminatory voting practices. The Green Book was a historical travel guide that helped black people navigate safely throughout the country by identifying hotels, guest houses, service stations, drugstores, taverns, barbershops, restaurants, businesses, and community spaces where they would be welcome. The listings were organized by state and city and were available for purchase at Esso gas stations across the country. The Green Book also inspired a 2018 Oscar-winning biographical film. Green expressed the hope that one day the Green Book would no longer be necessary. He said, "There will be a day sometime in the near future when this guide will not have to be published. That is when we, as a race, will have equal opportunities and privileges in the United States. It will be a great day for us to suspend this publication, for then we can go wherever we please and without embarrassment." After the Civil Rights Act of 1964 banned segregation in public places, the Green Book published its final edition in 1966.
You are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes after the hour. We turn now to the sports section, and the Bills started their training camp last week, and so that's the top article here. The question is, here's the headline: are there holes on the Bills' defense? Brandon Beane is about to find out. Until the padded practices and the preseason games begin, there's no way of knowing whether there's a weakness on the Buffalo Bills' defense that must be addressed with a roster move. There's excitement in the unknown. Someone like second-year defensive end Landon Jackson may be a better fit for the 3-4 base scheme the Bills' new defensive coordinator, Jim Leonhard, is continuing to install in training camp. Standing up more often as an outside linebacker should give Greg Rousseau a clearer path to the quarterback. There's also anxiety in the unknown. In addition to injuries like the lower calf strain veteran safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson suffered during practice on Saturday, Bills general manager and president of football operations Brandon Beane must prepare for the possibility that a player may not fit, or there's a role that needs to be filled by someone who's not currently on the roster. There is a number of depth concerns, said Leonhard. I think that you're always looking to make the roster better, whether it's at corner, just not a ton of experience past that first group. That's going to be a heated battle among many during camp. So definitely one we have our eyes on. We like who we have. We like the talent. We like where we're at currently. There's a lot to be determined on that field, and they're going to get the opportunity to go out and compete and to win roles. Also, why I love the safety group and the versatility. The roster, specifically the players' versatile skill sets, was among the reasons that Leonhard chose to join Joe Brady's coaching staff in Buffalo over other NFL opportunities. Leonhard expressed excitement for the potential of holdovers, and the insight he shared with Beane influenced the Bills' additions on defense this offseason. Both were encouraged by what they saw through the spring and the 3 practices to start camp. The true test, however, does not begin until today, when the pads come on at St. John Fisher University and the difference makers start to separate themselves from the rest. Despite Gardner-Johnson's injury, the Bills have depth at safety. Their options at outside linebacker are also promising, with Beane adding Bradley Chubb, T.J. Parker, and Mike Dana. The outlook at inside linebacker improved with rookie Caleb Elarms-Orr's performance. And there are several defensive linemen with the potential to break through under Leonhard. It's not as simple as needing one player at each position, though. To describe his playbook, Leonhard used the word volume. He's installing a lot of plays in different personnel groupings, like a 3-4 front, nickel and dime, because he wants to dictate what offenses do each game. If the quarterback the Bills are facing begins to create problems, Leonhard wants to have several possible solutions. To properly execute those plays, he needs specific roles to be filled. The uncertainty is why Beane is eager to watch his defense in the coming weeks. Problems may arise, but there's also the potential for a playmaker like defensive tackle Ed Oliver to become a game-wrecking presence under Leonard. One reason for Sean McDermott's firing, after all, was his inability to maximize the potential of the investments the Bills made on defense. I'm excited to see how all the pieces are being used, how they fit. What is their best fit, said Beane. We like versatility. We want these guys to be able to play multiple spots. Is Deion Walker's best spot at nose? Is it 4-eye? There's different guys that fall into that, and I don't think that's going to be determined in 1 or 2 practices. That's going to carry out through the preseason, and it'll be part of what we're trying to figure out. What's the best group to assemble for this part of this 53? Where may these problem areas exist on the Bills' defense? Well, those are some spots they'll be watching over the next few weeks.
Well, now it's time to turn to baseball, and in an earthquake of a deal, the Dodgers have landed an ace in a deal for Skubal. The Los Angeles Dodgers are landing the biggest trade piece at this year's deadline in 2-time defending American League Cy Young winner Tarik Skubal from the Detroit Tigers, according to multiple reports on Saturday night. The addition of the left-handed ace is a major boost to a Los Angeles side looking to become the first National League team to win 3 consecutive World Series, a feat last accomplished by the New York Yankees from 1998 to 2000. ESPN and The Athletic reported that Detroit would in turn receive 3 prospects in outfielder Zaire Hope, right-handers River Ryan, and Brady Smith. Skubal, age 29, elevated from a 9th-round pick in the 2018 Major League Draft out of Seattle University, has become one of the best pitchers in baseball. He became the 12th player in Major League history to win consecutive Cy Young Awards in 2024 through 25, leading the Detroit Tigers to their first 2 postseason appearances since 2014. However, he's set to be a free agent at the end of this season, and this year's Detroit team is 3 games back from the final American League wildcard spot. Skubal fought to hold back tears early Sunday morning as he discussed the trade. He sounded more like a man sorry to leave his city with a job unfinished than one who has the best chance of his career to win a World Series. "It's crazy," Skubal said. "Going into this season, this isn't what I planned on doing, but circumstances change, situations change." Skubal thought that championship ring would be slipped on his finger in Detroit. The Tigers lost 5 games in the American League Division Series each of the past 2 seasons, and Skubal wanted to make it over that hump with his Detroit teammates. "Ever since that 24 Game 5 failure, I've used that as fuel to bring a World Series to the city of Detroit," said Skubal, the losing pitcher in that decisive 2024 game. Skubal has a 61-42 record with a 3.04 career ERA over 7 seasons with the Tigers. He's posted ERAs of 2.80 or better in each of his last 4 seasons, including a league-leading 2.39 in 2024 and 2.21 in 2025, earning All-Star nods both years. He missed 6 weeks earlier this season after undergoing surgery to remove loose bodies from his left elbow. However, he returned ahead of schedule in June and has a 2.87 ERA with 71 strikeouts and 8 walks in 9 starts since returning. Overall, Skubal is 7-5 this season with a 2.79 ERA, 14 walks, and 114 strikeouts in 96 2/3 innings over 16 starts. He became the fastest player in franchise history to reach 1,000 career strikeouts in 153 games in what was his final start for Detroit on Wednesday. The Dodgers' need for starting pitching depth ramped up in the last few weeks as star slugger and pitcher Shohei Ohtani has been sidelined from pitching due to knee inflammation and bicep soreness. While his timeline for return to the mound is uncertain, it becomes less of a major need with the addition of Skubal. "I'm excited to be a Dodger," Skubal finally said. "I'm excited to get down there and meet all those guys and chase 3 championships in a row."
Now we get some news from the world of golf. The headline is, Thorbjornsen has a rocket blast. Michael Thorbjornsen shot a flawless 7 under par 63 to win the Rocket Classic and capture his first victory on the PGA Tour on Sunday at the Detroit Golf Club. A U.S. pro who currently resides at Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, Thorbjornsen finished at 18 under 262 for the tournament by draining a 25.5-foot birdie putt on the final hole. He had been close to winning before on the PGA Tour, and he's learned from many of those experiences. "I've been in that position a few times this year, and I didn't have the outcome I wanted," Thorbjornsen said. "I knew how to handle it." Thorbjornsen, who's 24, had the best round of the day for a 2-stroke winning margin on Xander Schauffele, who had a 65 on Sunday. "The feeling's unbelievable," Thorbjornsen said. "I don't really know how to feel. I'm feeling a lot of things I can't really put into words. Just extremely, extremely grateful to be sitting here right now." Third-round leader Davis Riley, who shot a 70, placed third at 15 under, and Denmark's Rasmus Højgaard shot a 68 and was fourth at 14 under. Thorbjornsen clinched a spot in the FedEx Cup playoffs, but he had to wait for the final 2 threesomes to finish before fully celebrating the tournament accomplishment on his 65th start of the tour. He had 2 top 10 finishes this year prior to this weekend. And in women's golf, Kawaki wins playoff for her first major title. Japan's Shiho Kawaki won her first major championship as she defeated Germany's Esther Heinzleit in the second playoff hole on Sunday to claim the Women's Open at Lytham St. Anne's, England. Kawaki posted a 1 under par 70 on Sunday to be the first to finish at 5 under 279 through 4 rounds at the Royal Lytham and St. Anne's. Heinzleit sank a 40-foot birdie putt at number 18 to cap her final round 70 and to force a sudden death playoff. And in the Senior League, Johnson captures the Portugal tournament. PGA Champions Tour rookie Zach Johnson birdied his first 3 holes and shot a 7 under par 65 on Sunday to capture the inaugural Portugal Invitational at the Els Club Vila Moura in Algarve, Portugal.
And we have some bits and tidbits from around the world of the sport, starting with tennis, where Alexandra Ayala continued her breakthrough season by upsetting third-seeded Naomi Osaka 6-4, 6-2 on Saturday to reach the final of the Mubadala DC Open in Washington, D.C. In the final, Ayala faced top-seeded Jessica Pegula, the Buffalo native who recovered from a slow start in the semifinal to defeat fourth-seeded Diana Schneider of Russia 7-5, 6-4. Pegula built a 6-4, 1-2 lead over the Philippines' Ayala in the final before play was suspended late Sunday afternoon until Monday due to heavy rain and lightning in Washington. "I just capitalized on a couple of areas," Pegula said of the semifinal match. "I think I just started trying to find the rhythm on that return. I didn't think I was that far off, so just trying to pick up my energy and again try to be a little bit more aggressive." Ranked number 3 in the world, Pegula was seeking her 3rd title of the season, 12th of her career, and 2nd in Washington after earning her first tour trophy there in 2019. Pegula won the only previous meeting with Ayala in the 2025 Miami Open semifinals. Ayala, A 21-year-old from the Philippines broke Osaka in the ninth game, then held at love to take the set. She carried that momentum into the second, jumping ahead 2-0 and adding another break for a 5-2 advantage before completing the victory in 76 minutes. And a couple of notes from the world of baseball. The Atlanta Braves added depth on their offensive and pitching sides on Saturday night, acquiring outfielder Lane Thomas and left-hander Bailey Falter from the Kansas City Royals. In exchange for Thomas and Falter, Atlanta is sending right-hander Lucas Braun and left-hander Carter Holtman to Kansas City. And the Tampa Bay Rays added to one of the Major League's better rotations on Sunday by acquiring two-time All-Star Freddie Peralta from the New York Mets in exchange for 3 prospects.
You are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour. We now seek some advice from Eric, so it's Asking Eric time. The headline here is, Acquaintance has unkind things to say about surgery results. Dear Eric, several years ago, after I had basal cell carcinoma removed from my nose and had some reparative work done, my husband and I visited a longtime acquaintance. She looked at me and said, "Oh, I guess that's the best he could do." Yikes! I spoke to her after the shock wore off, and she refused to apologize and even asked me how I got my husband to marry me. What would you have said in reply? And it's signed, Shocked Friend. And Eric replies, Dear Shocked, sometimes the best reply is no reply at all, because this person was being cruel, and when you pointed out the unkindness, she doubled down. So, in my book, that means they're not interested in or capable of having a productive or kind conversation at the moment. It might have been a passing mood for which she could make amends for later, or it might have been some other issue, or it might have been basic unkindness. Whatever the reason, it wouldn't have served you to continue to engage with her. Sometimes we need to protect ourselves by removing ourselves from conversations. I write a lot in this column about communication, and I believe that when we communicate with each other and extend grace to each other, we can solve a lot of problems. But that doesn't mean we always have to stay in the same room if grace is not on offer and communication is being replaced by cruelty. Our next letter, Dear Eric. My question is not headline news, rather about courtesy and manners. More often than one would expect when my wife and I eat out at a better restaurant, the waiter will get the order slightly wrong. It could be a drink or a slight variant of the dish. When the error is discovered, the waiter will say, "Oh, that drink or dish is on me." Then when the bill comes, we're charged. Sometimes they bring an unordered dessert that we get charged for, too. Usually, I'm too timid to bring it up and so I pay the entire bill with the tip. I think I probably should be more assertive, but I try to avoid uncomfortable situations. What is your call? And it's signed, Overly Courteous. And Eric replies, Dear Courteous, it may put your mind at ease to reframe these situations as conversations rather than conflicts. The server wants to bring you what you ordered. It's their job, and good servers want to provide good service. So they would rather you alert them that something didn't go quite as planned than for you to have a bad experience. Similarly, if a server has forgotten to move an item off the check, it won't reflect poorly on you to bring it to their attention and to ask them to fix it. Most point-of-service systems make that relatively easy. So do consider being more assertive when these things happen. You may find that getting in the habit of letting a server know when you've been charged incorrectly takes the bite out of it and your anxiety about it will go away. You're not chastising the server or even complaining. You're simply pointing out a small change that needs to be made. You might also consider heading this issue off at the pass by declining the free dish or drink and just asking for the item that you ordered. Again, this isn't complaining. It may be helpful to remember that drinks and dishes are remade all the time. If it's not what you ordered, you don't have to eat it or drink it. Our next letter, Dear Eric. I'd like to add to your response to the letter from Second Act, who was considering a career change. I changed careers in my early 40s after spending 2 decades as an account executive in media sales. In researching my next step, I enlisted the help of a life/career coach. Her suggestion was to interview people in the profession I wanted to enter with questions about experiences in the broad context of their work life. In my case, this was contacting mental health professionals. These interviews were a vital part of my transition to clinical social work through a graduate degree. I happily spent more than 25 years as a mental health clinician. As a midlife career changer, we take some of the skills we learn in our first career with us to the second career. All experience matters, and it's signed, Happy Second Act. And Eric replies, Dear Second Act, thanks for writing. Enlisting the services of a career counselor can be a game changer. These professionals are trained to help clients work through the logistical, professional, and emotional challenges of a career change and many other work hurdles. Additionally, it's very wise to talk to others in the field one is considering entering. Their experience and connections can help lay the groundwork for a successful transition.
Well, our next article is entitled Suit Up. A South Korea-U.S. team unveils robotic technology that dresses a wearer. A team of South Korean and U.S. researchers unveiled a robotic technology that allows a person to suit up without using their hands or aid from others, with potential for applications in chip clean rooms and emergency services. The technology is developed by researchers at South Korea's Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology and Stanford University and uses soft and flexible vines powered by air pressure embedded in clothing. When pressurized, the vines glide the fabric up close to the wearer's body like an ivy plant climbing on a structure, even if the person does not remain standing still. When I was riding a bicycle, it started to rain, and I thought it would be helpful if a raincoat could be put on automatically as I ride, said postdoctoral researcher Kim Nan-gyeon, the lead author of a paper on the technology. The Vine robot stays close to the person and dresses them by turning the clothing inside out as it moves, allowing it to climb stably along the shape of the body, Kim said, adding that it takes about 10 seconds to put on a full suit. A key to the technology's potential is that it does not require the wearer to stand motionless and works without a complex control algorithm, the researchers said. Inspired by climbing ivy, the robot advances by growing at its tip rather than shifting its whole body, enabling stable movement along curved surfaces, said Ryu Ji-hwan, a professor of civil and environmental engineering. It can pass through narrow gaps, grow while adapting to the shape of its surrounding environment, and move regardless of whether the surface is slippery, sticky, or sloped, he said. Beyond immediate applications for helping the elderly and disabled, the team sees potential for use where the user needs to suit up quickly and off quickly and without using hands, including in semiconductor clean rooms and by emergency workers requiring personal protective equipment. Ryu said that given the explosive growth of artificial intelligence, there was usually so much attention on the software powering the systems, but the team's self-dressing robot was an example of how mechanical engineering could complement software. The study was published in the IEEE Robotics and Automation newsletter, a peer-reviewed journal. Now, as I listen to this, the way it sounds like to me, it sounds like you're like in the inside of an air mattress that automatically blows itself up.
Yes. Well, Ed, your article there was about suiting up, and my article's about bunkering down. So this is about a man who's transforming a Cold War site into an electric vehicle charging station and lounge. Bunker down. The walls are covered in graffiti. Some glass is shattered, and most of the copper is gone. Yet about 20 to 30 feet below ground, in this Cold War era bunker in the middle of the California desert, Jonathan Shin envisions a modern twist for the hidden relic, a lounge for EV drivers. Shin, founder of Power Station Charging, purchased this remote site along Interstate 15. He installed an electric vehicle charging station and a field of solar panels to power it. And he wants to turn the bunker into a spot where drivers can kick back while their cars juice up. Shin, who is 39 years old, a San Diego area resident, set out to open 4 solar-powered EV charging stations in Southern California. Closer to Las Vegas, his property is just off the Razor Road exit on I-15, about 13 miles southwest of the main commercial drag through the pint-sized town of Baker. The 10-acre plot in San Bernardino County has more than 1,000 solar panels in place and a charging station that can feed power to up to 4 cars at one time. The property also has small above-ground building that looks like a storage shed, with no visible clue as to what's below. Shin said the underground bunker spans more than 8,000 square feet and was built in the 1960s. It was a communications facility, and he said designed to survive a nuclear blast 15 miles away or any other kind of aerial bombardment. It still has remnants of the old days, including a decontamination shower, motors, shredded lines of copper, control pressure gauges, a heavy vault light main entry door, and a 1963 inspection stamp from the ITE Circuit Breaker Company. AT&T previously owned the site, though property records don't show when it acquired the plot. The telecommunications giant did not respond to a request for comment. AT&T sold the site in 2006 to investor Gil Stoffels of Portland, Oregon, according to property records and business entity filings. Stoffels sold the property in 2016, but reacquired it through foreclosure in 2018. Property records show that in 2024, he sold the site to Shin for $450,000. Stoffel said the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers built the bunker, noting it was a good conversation piece. He charged a $1,000 showing fee to serious would-be buyers. When he bought the property, he had no particular plans for it. In hindsight, I should have made it a museum because it was fully functional, he said. It was heartbreaking to see it get vandalized. Stoffels said the bunker was vandalized a few times while he owned it. He once encountered a few people at the property, including someone who was inside. Baron Castillo, who brokered the sale to Shin, said there was paperwork all over the place when he visited the bunker. He also said there was a lot of graffiti, and people sprayed even more after he listed the property for sale. Castillo, the owner of the real estate firm Apartment Building Investments, has listed burned down gas stations and other unusual properties, but this bunker stands out. This is up there, he said. Shin said he added a secured entrance to the building above the bunker that he bought at the site. Before that, anyone could just walk in. He said he sent a crew that hauled out a dumpster-sized volume of trash. The vandalism was extensive. The bunker was smothered in graffiti, equipment was busted, and according to Shin, vandals took pretty much all the copper, even using a torch to get some of it out. Shin installed security cameras inside and outside and wired the bunker to have some lighting. He plans to install another 500 solar panels outside and 6 more EV charging ports. He put the total cost of the build-out at $4 to $5 million, but said this would drop to the $3 million range after accounting for federal tax credits. Shin said he opened Power Station Razor Road in the first quarter of this year, and it's logged more than 1,000 charges. So far, drivers charged up for free, as Shin said he wanted to make sure the systems run smoothly, but he noted that pricing will start this month. As for the lounge, he plans to offer pre-packaged snacks and drinks and possibly charge a flat entry fee. He also said it would have cameras and a secured entrance. He figures he'll send workers to clean the restrooms and restock the food, but otherwise it won't be staffed 24 hours a day. He plans to keep much of the graffiti intact, viewing it as more artwork than vandalism. Above all, he wants to keep the industrial bunker feel of this place. He figures the novelty alone could draw plenty of drivers along the heavily traveled route between Las Vegas and Southern California. People will actually want to come and just see this, he said.
Well, next we need the music from Jaws to introduce our next story because the headline is Toothy Travelers, Sharks are expanding their range as climate change raises sea temperatures. Researchers found rising ocean temperatures are reshaping where sharks live and travel. 2 recent studies offer new insights into how shark behavior and habitats are changing. Some species expanded their range farther along the east coast, while others, such as great white sharks, use the Gulf of Mexico as an important winter habitat. The oceans experienced historic warming over the past decade, soaking up more than 90% of the surplus heat accumulated in the climate system, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So will we see more sharks? Not necessarily. You may not see more sharks overall, but you could see them in places where they were once less common. Shannon Barry, a researcher in the Department of Ocean Engineering and Marine Sciences at the Florida Institute of Technology and a lead author of a recent study, seem to agree. As we see ocean temperatures increasing, especially as you move northward along the U.S. Atlantic coast, these near-shore habitats that bull sharks use for nursery sites are moving into the temperature range preferred by juveniles, she said. Shark sightings are popping up in regions where they don't normally visit, just as animals adjust to warming waters, USA Today previously reported. As ocean conditions change, some species shift their migration routes, feeding grounds, and nursery habitats, Barry's study says. These changes can lead to more shark sightings and in some areas a greater likelihood of shark-human encounters. So where are they shifting? As ocean temperatures rise, bull sharks appear to be moving critical nursery habitats farther north along the east coast. Barry and her researchers found evidence that new nursery populations became established in North Carolina, signaling a broader shift in the species' behavior. The move poleward is driven by climate change, Barry said. Bull sharks have a specific temperature range they like to maintain, with the adults typically found between 78.8 and 86 degrees Fahrenheit and rarely below 68 degrees. Another peer-reviewed study, published in the journal Wildlife Research, challenges previous assumptions about great white shark migration. Researchers found that many great whites travel thousands of miles each winter from Canada and the northeastern United States to the Gulf of Mexico. Using satellite-linked smart position and acoustic tags, researchers tracked 92 white sharks tagged between Nova Scotia, Canada, and Jacksonville, Florida, finding that 57 sharks from across all stages of life spent significant time in the Gulf or Straits of Florida, primarily from December through May. For years, we suspected great white sharks were using the Gulf more than people realized. Chris Fisher, founder and expedition leader of OCEARCH, posted on the group's site. This research confirms the Gulf is a regular winter habitat for this population and highlights how connected the ecosystems in the Atlantic truly are. It's no surprise that Florida leads the nation in unprovoked shark bites. With more than 8,000 miles of coastline and millions of people entering the water each year, the state offers more opportunities for shark-human encounters than anywhere else in the U.S. But you're far more likely to be struck by lightning than attacked by a shark. Shark attacks are extremely rare, and the Florida Museum, a state natural history museum, puts the odds at being attacked by a shark at 1 in 11.5 million, while the odds of being struck by lightning in any given year are 1 in 1.2 million.
Very good. We turn now to the My View essay, and today's essay was submitted by James Morabito, who knows the rewards of offering help, and it's entitled, All the Helpers Will Eventually Need Help Themselves. A couple of weeks ago, I was doing my daily exercise walk when I saw something ordinary yet at the same time remarkable. It was something that most people wouldn't pay much attention to, but was, to me, food for thought and emblematic of life's journey. It was a big, shiny, powerful flatbed tow truck. So what, you might say? Well, what it was towing was what made it interesting and meaningful. It was towing another big, shiny, powerful flatbed tow truck. It seems that tow trucks they used a hook and chain to lift up the front of a car or truck and tow it, have gone by way of the dodo bird. As a young guy, with the junkers and clunkers that I was driving, I needed plenty of tow trucks. Flatbed tow trucks, also known as rollback tow trucks, are much more common now. They have long, tilting metal beds that lower to the ground. The impression that I got was that the tow truck driving down the street was helping the one loaded up on top to get to somewhere. Maybe the one getting the ride had a mechanical problem. Maybe it needed to be moved or being bought, or registered. Who knows? The point is that one tow truck was helping the other one by giving it a ride. This is what made me think. This is what reminded me of human beings in our journey through life. Most people, at some point, need the help of someone else, especially when they're young or when they're old. We need parents, obviously, but also babysitters, caregivers, helpers, assistants, etc. To use another vehicle analogy, ambulance drivers might someday find themselves as patients in an ambulance. This time, they are not the ones doing the helping, but they are the people being helped. As they age, they might need a ride to the hospital for a medical emergency, car accident, or something else. Doctors are, as we know, wonderful medical professionals who have spent years treating patients. Doctors do, however, like all people, get old, get sick, and end up in the hospitals themselves. Years ago, I had a wonderful doctor who took good care of me and other family members. He was friendly, had a great sense of humor. When he got cancer and closed his practice, it was just another signal that none of us are getting out of here alive. What's the lesson of all this? We need to be humble and we need to be helpful. Our day of needing helping ourselves might occur sooner than we think. I know two sharp, funny ladies in their 90s. One called me and said the other one had fallen and could not get up. I rushed right over. A previous knee replacement made it impossible for her to get up. She scooted around her house a little bit until I arrived. Because of my health issues, I can't lift anything over a few pounds. Nevertheless, working together, we got her rubbed. Then she fed me some nice chicken and a blueberry muffin for lunch. There are other ways of helping people who are ill or older. One thing that I do is keep in touch. I try to entertain them with conversation. We keep up with family matters and public events. The bottom line is that we all need to be ready to help other people because, for most of us, the time will come when we ourselves are the ones needing help.
You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Monday, August 3rd. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast it at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Ted Pajacki
and Ed Howard, and we thank you for listening.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability.